Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, Psychodynamic Therapy, and Humanistic Therapy. So we're going to go through each one and talk about them kind of in a nutshell. Hello, welcome back to my channel, Mental Health with Melissa. I'm Melissa. I'm a licensed clinical therapist based in the state of California. Before we get started, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more videos like this. I post content every single Wednesday and Sunday. Subscribing to my channel really helps me get information out there to our communities of color and also information out there to those that are interested in the mental health professions. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we're going to be talking about three of the main therapeutic models or interventions. And those models and interventions are cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodynamic therapy, and humanistic therapy. So we're going to go through each one and talk about them kind of in a nutshell. This information may be helpful to those that are studying for their clinical exams for licensing, if you happen to be an aspiring therapist, depending on your background in the specific area that you're studying or the specific mental health provider that you are, they may ask questions about different types of therapeutic models. So I'm going to go over those three that I mentioned right now. So the first one that I talked about is cognitive behavioral therapy, also known as CBT. You may have heard of it, as a lot of people actually use this model. A pretty widely well-received and well-known type of intervention. Now, CBT, or behavioral therapy, was really founded by the therapist Aaron Beck. So he was really known as the founding father of cognitive behavioral therapy. And cognitive behavioral therapy really focuses on, you may have seen it if you do charts with your clients, or if you're a client yourself and your therapist has given you charts to complete as exercises, but a little triangle. And the triangle represents the thoughts at the top, the feelings at the bottom, and the behaviors also at the bottom, and how they all interconnect. So the premise behind CBT is that our thoughts impact and influence our feelings, which in turn impact and influence our behaviors. So an example of this is if somebody has severe depression and they have thoughts that arise such as, I am worthless, nobody will ever like me. Having those thoughts will likely make you feel sad and feel upset. And those feelings will likely affect your behaviors, which may be to isolate and continue to stay away from people as opposed to approaching people and making friends and social support. Now, as a disclaimer, these are all just general examples that I'm giving. Each specific individual has such a different case. So just because I'm using the example of depression does not mean it's a one size fits all, and that anybody with depression is going to benefit from this specific example that I'm giving, because again, it's all very specific to each single case. The point of the CBT is to change the thoughts. So these thoughts are not thoughts that have just come up overnight. As people, we start to believe things have been very deep rooted in our history, right? And so the thoughts of I am worthless didn't just come up overnight. They are things that you probably have told yourself as a result of your experiences. And so the goal here is to acknowledge that these are unhelpful thoughts and change them to more helpful thoughts. And it's not a process that happens overnight. It takes a long period of time to kind of revise those thoughts, as it took a very long time for them to become deep-rooted into you. So one of the limitations of CBT is that really surrounds exercises and these charts. And again, just like anything, there isn't a one size fits all. Everybody's so different. So the next intervention that I want to talk about is the psychodynamic therapy model or psychodynamic theory. So I'm sure you have probably heard of Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is really the father and founder of the id, the ego, and the superego. And psychodynamic theory really is conceptualized by the thought that have a lot of suppressed memories and feelings, and as a result, it comes out in other ways. And so psychodynamic therapists, psychodynamic theorists really want to talk about what happened in your childhood. There's a lot of stages of development going on during those developmental years, and the goal is to really remember what happened when you were growing up with your primary caregivers, aka your parents or whoever it was that raised you, and how that really affected your ability to cope, other things of that matter. Now, one of the major limitations to psychodynamic therapy is that it involves a lot of insight. So if you are an individual that is fully independent mentally and functional, and you have the ability to go back and think about how things of your past may be influencing your behavior today, that's excellent. But not everybody is able to do that. And what I mean by that is those that are severely mentally ill, such as those that are experiencing extreme schizophrenia symptoms or bipolar, may not have the capacity to use the tools in psychodynamic therapy. Lastly is humanistic therapy. Humanistic therapy was really founded by Mr. Carl Rogers, and the whole premise behind humanistic therapy is person-centered care, or really meeting the client where they're at. Now, what this means is really making sure that your client, or if you are the client, you're able to talk about whatever it is that you need to talk about without much, I don't want to say confrontation, but that's kind of what I want to say, without confrontation or without much direction from the therapist. Because the point of humanistic therapy, again, is really to meet the client or the person in the therapy process where they're at, and ask open-ended questions and be there to support as much as possible. And the rationale behind that, according to Mr. Carl Rogers, is that people are going to be more likely to open up and to make progress in therapy if you as the therapist are going to really let them lead the way and talk about what they need to talk about without any judgment or without any critical direction. Now, the limitations to humanistic therapy are that it may be less structured than the other types of therapy interventions that are out there. And for those that really want a lot of feedback, you may not get that from a humanistic type of therapy approach. So there you go. In a nutshell, those were 3 of the main therapeutic intervention models, and they all have amazing benefits. They all have some limitations. And so really do your research if you are studying more about those interventions. And there's never one size fits all. Really, you're going to want to make sure that each individual that you're treating and providing services to is going to be appropriate for the intervention that you're choosing. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Until next time, managing mental health matters.